listen to me very carefully. You need to tell someone, anyone, before that plane takes off. I am just a kid. Who is going to believe me? Then find someone who will. Because if you do not, everyone on that aircraft dies in the next 3 hours. How do you know? Because I heard them. Every word. They did not know I spoke Russian. And now I know too much. The voices came through the ventilation grate like ghosts. Two men speaking rapidly in Russian. Their tones low and urgent, completely unaware that a 17-year-old black boy was standing 3 feet away, frozen against the wall, understanding every single word. The device is already on board. Altitude trigger. Once they reach 30,000 feet, it is over. And Shin, you are certain he will be on this flight? His security confirmed the manifest an hour ago. He will board at 11. By midnight, the Korean problem is solved, and Volkov takes control of the eastern territories. What about witnesses? 14 passengers. Acceptable losses. Make it look like mechanical failure. No one will suspect. Emeka Okonkwo pressed himself against a cold concrete wall, his heart hammering so loud he was terrified they would hear it through the vent. His hands were shaking. His legs felt like water, and his mind was racing through the impossible math of what he had just heard. A bomb. On a plane. 14 people about to die. And he was the only person in the world who knew. Have you ever been in a situation where doing nothing was safe and doing something could destroy your entire life? Where the smart choice was to walk away. Pretend you heard nothing. Let the world burn because it was not your fire put out. What would you do? What would any of us do? Because in the next 60 seconds, Emeka made a choice that would change everything. Not just for himself. Not just for the strangers on that plane, but for his entire family, in ways he could not begin to imagine. And it all started with one question his grandmother used to ask him back in Nigeria. When you see evil, Emeka, and you do nothing, what does that make you? Before we go any further, I need to know something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your country in the comments because this story is bringing people together from all over the world, and I want to know where you are. And if you are new here, welcome to this growing family. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications and join us on this journey. Like this video and share with someone who needs to hear a story about courage, about love, about what happens when an ordinary person does something extraordinary. Trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of what comes next. This story is going to leave you speechless. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, because to understand what happened in that corridor, you need to understand the boy who was standing in it. Emeka Okonkwo was not supposed to be at that airfield. He was not supposed to be anywhere near the private jets and the men in expensive suits and the world of secrets that operated behind unmarked gates on the outskirts of Chicago. He was 17 years old, a senior at a public high school on the South Side, the kind of kid teachers called gifted but the system called invisible. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with his older sister Ada, and every month they scraped together enough money to send back to Nigeria, to their mother, to the hospital where she lay connected to machines that were slowly losing the battle to keep her alive. Chronic kidney disease. That is what the doctors called it. Expensive. That is what the bills called it. Impossible. That is what it felt like every single day. But Emeka had one thing that set him apart from everyone else he knew. One gift that his grandmother had recognized when he was just 8 years old, sitting in her kitchen in their village outside Lagos, listening to the radio. That boy hears differently, she had told his mother. His ears catch what others miss. She was right. By the time Emeka was 15, he spoke 5 languages fluently. Igbo from his grandmother, who insisted he never forget where he came from. French from old films he watched late at night, when sleep would not come. Spanish from the neighborhood, from the kids he grew up with, from the music that poured out of windows on summer evenings. Mandarin from online courses, because he was curious, because he wanted to understand the fastest growing economy in the world. And Russian from a strange fascination with Cold War history, with the spy novels he devoured, with the chess masters he studied on YouTube. Russian, the language that would save 14 lives. The language that would bring a crime lord to his knees. The language that would give his sister a future she never dared to dream. But that night, standing in that corridor, Emeka did not know any of that yet. All he knew was that his hands were shaking and his heart was pounding, and men were planning murder 3 feet away from him. Let me tell you how he got there. His sister Ada worked as an emergency translator for the airfield. It was one of 3 jobs she juggled to keep them afloat. During the day, she did administrative work at a small law firm. At night, she worked the front desk at a hotel downtown. And on weekends, when the airfield needed someone who could handle international clients, they called her. The pay was good. The hours were unpredictable. And the people who used that airfield were the kind of people you did not ask questions about. That Tuesday morning, Ada woke up burning with fever. Her whole body ached. Her throat was on fire. And she had a shift at the airfield that night that she could not afford to miss. Emeka, she had croaked from her bed, her face pale and sweating. I need you to cover for me. At the airfield? Are you serious? Just check in the international guests. Smile. Be professional. That is all you have to do. Ada, I am 17. I do not belong there. You belong wherever you need to be to help this family survive. Her eyes were fierce even through the fever. Please, Emeka, I cannot lose this job. We cannot afford for me to lose this job. So he went. He borrowed a service uniform from the locker room, one that did not quite fit, the sleeves too long, the shoulders too wide. He learned the protocols from a quick briefing by the night manager, and he tried to stay invisible, just like Ada had told him. But staying invisible is hard when you are the only blackface in a sea of white uniforms. When every guard looks at you a little too long. When every guest seems surprised that you are there at all. Emeka cataloged everything. It was what his mind did, automatically, without him even trying. The exits and entrances, the camera positions, the rotation patterns of security guards, the way certain men moved differently than others, with a controlled alertness that spoke of military training or something darker. By 9 o'clock, he had restocked the hospitality cart 3 times, delivered champagne to a platinum lounge, and successfully avoided making eye contact with anyone important. And then he was sent to the service corridor, restocked the supply closet at the end of the hall. The night manager told him, water bottles, snacks, napkins. The red-eye flights always need extra. Emeka walked down the corridor alone. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The walls were industrial concrete, unpainted, purely functional. This was the part of the airfield that guests never saw, the machinery behind the magic. He was halfway to the supply closet when he heard the voices. They came through a ventilation grate set high in the wall, carrying clearly in the empty corridor. 2 men, speaking in rapid Russian, their tones low and urgent. Most people would have heard nothing but foreign noise, background chatter, something to ignore. But Emeka heard every word. The device is confirmed on an aircraft? Confirmed. Cargo hold, Section C. The altitude trigger is set for 30,000 feet. 20 minutes after takeoff, maximum. No chance of survival. And the target? Shin Tae-hyun. The manifest shows he boards at 11. His security detail, for men. That is all. They will die with him? Acceptable. Volkov want a clean sweep. With Shin gone, the Eastern Territories fall to us within the week. The Koreans will have no one strong enough to hold them. What about the other passengers? 14 total. Businessmen, lawyers, a few family members. Acceptable losses. The official story will be mechanical failure. No investigation. No trail back to us. Emeka stopped breathing. His back was pressed against the wall. His hands were flat against the cold concrete, and his mind was running through what he had just heard. Try to find another explanation. Try and convince himself he had misunderstood. But he had not misunderstood. His Russian was flawless. He knew exactly what those men had said. In less than 2 hours, a plane was going to explode at 30,000 feet. 14 people were going to die. And the men planning it were wearing security uniforms for this very airfield. Emeka's first instinct was to run. To get out of that corridor, out of that building, out of that world that was not his. To go home and pretend he had never heard anything. But then his grandmother's voice echoed in his head, as clear as if she were standing beside him. The man who watches evil and does nothing becomes evil himself. That is not my grandson. My grandson fights. Emeka closed his eyes. He took one breath. then another, and then he started to move. The first problem was figuring out who to tell. The police would take too long. By the time they arrived, by the time they took him seriously, by the time they got past the unmarked gates and the private security, the plane would already be in the air. The security at the airfield was compromised. Those voices had been guards. The very people who were supposed to protect the passengers were the ones planning to kill them. That left one option. Warn the target directly. Warn this Shin Tae-hyun person before he got on that plane. But who was Shin Tae-hyun? The name meant nothing to Emeka. He needed to find out. Fast. Ada had taught him how to access the passenger manifests. It was part of her job, checking names and nationalities before translation services were needed. She had shown him the system once, walking him through it in case she ever needed backup. This was backup. This was the only kind of backup that mattered. Emeka moved through the corridors like a ghost. He stayed in service passages, away from the main terminals. He avoided cameras where he could, keeping his head down, his pace steady, looking like a worker going about his business. The main office was empty. The night manager was on the floor somewhere. Everyone else was busy with the evening departures. Emeka slipped inside. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the manifest for Flight 847, private charter, departing 11 p.m. And there it was, the name that made his blood run cold. Shin Tae-hyun, CO, Shin Holdings International. Emeka stared at the screen. He knew that name. Everyone in Chicago knew that name, even if they did not say it out loud. Shin Tae-hyun was not just a businessman. He was Korean organized crime royalty, the head of an empire that stretched across 3 continents. The kind of man whose enemies disappeared without a trace. The kind of man who could have Emeka killed with a single phone call. And Emeka was about to walk up to him and tell him someone wanted him dead. This was insane. This was absolutely, completely, utterly insane. But there was no one else. Emeka logged out of the system, wiped his fingerprint from the keyboard, and headed for the Platinum Lounge. The Platinum Lounge was everything the service corridor was not. Leather chairs that cost more than cars. Mahogany tables polished to mirrors. Crystal decanters filled with amber liquid. The scent of expensive cologne and old money hanging in the air. Emeka had delivered champagne here earlier in the evening. He knew the layout. He knew the protocols. And he knew that what he was about to do violated every rule he had been given. He grabbed a service jacket from a supply closet. It was slightly different from his current uniform, cleaner, more formal. He loaded a tray with champagne flutes. And he walked toward the lounge with a confidence he did not feel. The guard at the door looked him over. Emeka kept his expression neutral, professional, bored. Just another worker doing a job. We did not order anything, the guard said. Complimentary service, sir, for platinum guests. The guard hesitated. Then a voice came from inside the lounge, smooth and commanding and utterly calm. Let him through. It is fine. Emeka walked in. And there he was. Shin Tae-hyun was not what Emeka had expected. He had imagined someone older, crueler, with the hard eyes of a killer. Instead, he found a man in his mid-30s, devastatingly handsome in a tailored charcoal suit, his dark hair perfectly styled, his posture radiating control power. He sat in a leather armchair like it was a throne, speaking quietly with 2 men who had the alert stillness of trained bodyguards. Everything about him said danger. Everything about him said do not approach. But it was his eyes that caught Emeka off guard. Dark, intelligent, and tired. The kind of tired that came from carrying too much for too long. Emeka approached with the champagne tray. His heart was hammering. His hands wanted to shake, but he forced them steady. He had maybe 30 seconds before they expected him to leave. 30 seconds to convince one of the most dangerous men in the Western Hemisphere that a 17-year-old service worker had information worth believing. He set the tray on the side table, pretending to arrange the glasses. And then he leaned in, speaking in a low, rapid whisper directly to Shin. Do not get on that plane. There's a bomb. Altitude trigger at 30,000 feet. Your guards, some of them are working for someone named Volkov. They're going to kill you and everyone on board. Shin Tae-hyun went absolutely still. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. Emeka could feel the weight of the man's attention like a physical force. pressing down on him, assessing, calculating, deciding whether Emeka was a threat, a lunatic, or something else entirely. Then Shin spoke, his voice barely above a murmur. "You speak Russian?" "Yes, sir. And you heard my guards discussing this. Through a ventilation grate. 10 minutes ago. 2 of them. They mentioned device already on the aircraft and referenced someone named Volkov taking control of Eastern territories." Another long pause. The bodyguards were watching now, their hands drifting toward concealed weapons. Emeka was acutely aware that he could be dead in the next 5 seconds. Instead, Shin said one word to his men. "Verit." It was a code. Emeka recognized that immediately, because both bodyguards shifted not toward Emeka, but toward defensive positions. One pulled out a phone and began speaking rapidly in Korean. The other moved toward the door, hand inside his jacket. Shin stood, and for the first time, Emeka saw what made this man truly terrifying. It was not rage or cruelty. It was absolute, control calm in the face of mortal danger. "What is your name?" Shin asked. Emeka Okonkwo. Emeka. The name sounded strange in his accent, but he said it carefully, respectfully. "You just risked everything to warn a stranger." "Why?" Emeka thought about his grandmother, about the 14 people who would have died, about doing the right thing even when it was terrifying. "Because I could," he said simply, "and because no one else was going to." Something shifted in Shin Tae-hyun's expression, something that might have been respect. "Stay close to me," he said. "Until I know who else is compromised, you are not safe either. You have made yourself a target, Emeka Okonkwo, and I do not let people who save my life face consequences alone." The next 4 hours were a blur of controlled chaos. Shin's legitimate security team swept the aircraft and found the device. It was exactly where Emeka had said it would be. Military grade, sophisticated, designed to look like mechanical failure when investigated. 3 of the guards were quietly detained. Men Emeka had walked past earlier in the evening. Men who had nodded at him. Men who were planning to murder 14 innocent people. The flight was canceled. The passengers were rerouted. And Volkov, whoever he was, lost his opportunity. Emeka was questioned extensively, not by police, by Shin's personal security director, a terrifying woman named Park Ji-young, who had the eyes of someone who could detect lies through sheer force of will. She asked him the same questions over and over. How did he hear the conversation? Why was he in that corridor? Who did he work for? What did he want? Emeka answered honestly every time. He had nothing to hide. He was exactly what he appeared to be. A teenager who happened to speak Russian and happened to have a conscience. Finally, after what felt like hours, Ji-young's expression shifted from suspicion to something approaching approval. He is telling the truth, she told Shin. No connections, no agenda. He is exactly what he claims to be. I know, Shin said. He was looking at Emeka with that calculating gaze again, like he was trying to solve a puzzle that did not fit any known pattern, which is why I intend to make sure he is protected and compensated. Emeka's head snapped up. I do not want money. Both adults looked at him with surprise. I did not do this for payment. Emeka continued. His voice was steady despite his exhaustion. I did it because it was right. Shin's eyebrows rose slightly. Everyone wants something. Emeka, not everyone. My sister taught me that. She works 3 jobs and sends money back to Nigeria for our mother's medical care. She tutors kids in the neighborhood for free because she believes in paying forward whatever good you receive. She does not do things for payment. She does them because they matter. The room went quiet. Your sister, Shin said slowly. What is her name? Ada Okonkwo. And she works here, at this airfield, as a translator. She was sick today, so I covered her shift. Emeka felt suddenly defensive. She did not know anything about this. She is not involved. I am not accusing her of anything. Shin's voice was surprisingly gentle. I am curious about the woman who raised a young man willing to risk his life for strangers. I would like to meet her. 3 days later, Ada Okonkwo found herself standing in front of Shin Holdings International Chicago headquarters, her hands shaking and her heart racing. She had spent the 3 days since Emeka's revelation in a state of barely controlled panic. Her baby brother, the genius kid she had practically raised since their father died and their mother got sick, had inserted himself into the middle of a Korean Mafia power struggle. He had saved lives, yes, but he had also made himself visible to people who preferred operating in shadows. And now their family was on someone's radar. She had wanted to run, to take Emeka and disappear back to Nigeria, back to their village where they would be anonymous and safe. But Emeka had refused. I did the right thing. Ada, I am not going to hide from that. And then the invitation had come, a formal request from Shin Tae-hyun himself. Refusing, the accompanying note had made clear, would be unwise. So here she was, walking into a building that screamed money and power, wearing her nicest dress, which was not very nice at all, trying not to let her terror show on her face. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Michigan. Modern art adorned walls that probably cost more than her apartment building. Everything was clean lines and muted colors and quiet wealth. And standing by those windows, silhouetted against the Chicago skyline, was a man who held her brother's fate in his hands. He turned as she entered, and Ada felt something she had not expected. Recognition. Not that she had ever met him before, but something in his face, the exhaustion behind the control, the loneliness behind the power, felt painfully familiar. She saw that look in her own mirror every morning. Miss Okonkwo, his voice was deeper than she had imagined, smoother. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? The words came out sharper than she had intended. Ada winced internally, but she could not take them back now. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. There's always a choice. But I am glad you made this one. He gestured to a seating area. Please. She sat. He sat across from her. The distance between them felt charged, electric, like the air before a storm. Your brother, he began, is extraordinary. I know. He has a gift for languages that most professionals spend decades trying to develop. More importantly, he has integrity that cannot be taught. Shin leaned forward slightly. In my world, Miss Okonkwo, those qualities are rare and invaluable. What do you want with him? Ada's voice was hard, protective, the voice of a woman who had spent her whole life defending the people she loved. He is 17. He is a kid. He does not belong in your world. I agree. That surprised her, which is why I want to offer him something different. Education. Columbia University has an accelerated linguistics program, full scholarship, housing, living expenses, everything he needs to build the kind of future his abilities deserve. Ada stared at him. That is, why would you do that? Because he saved my life. Because he saved 14 lives. And because... Shin paused, something flickering in his dark eyes. Because I understand what it means to be the one responsible for family. To sacrifice everything for the people who depend on you. He held her gaze, and Ada felt something shift in her chest. Something uncomfortable and warm. Your brother mentioned that you work 3 jobs. Shin continued. That you support your mother's medical care in Nigeria. That you help your community without expecting anything in return. Emeka talks too much. Emeka is proud of you, as he should be. Shin's gaze was steady, intense. I am not trying to buy your brother, Miss Okonkwo. I am trying to give him opportunities he has earned. And I am trying to make sure your family is protected from any consequences of his courage. Ada's blood went cold. What kind of consequences? Volkal will not stop. He will want to know who warned me. If he finds out about Emeka... Shin did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. You are saying my brother is in danger. I am saying he will be, unless he is under my protection. Unless your entire family is. Shin stood and walked to the windows, his back to her. I am offering sanctuary, Miss Okonkwo, a new apartment in a secure building. Security personnel who will keep your family safe. Educational opportunities for Emeka, and employment for you if you want it. Employment doing what? My business is international. I need translators I can trust. People with integrity who cannot be bought. He turned to face her. Based on everything I have learned about you, you fit that description perfectly. And what do you want in return? Ada asked. Her voice was steady, but her heart was racing. What is the catch? No catch. just proximity. Something in his expression shifted, became more honest, more vulnerable. I am surrounded by people who want things from me. Power, money, influence. Your brother wanted nothing except to do the right thing. It has been a long time since I encountered someone like that. I find myself curious about the family that produced him, the silence stretched between them. Ada studied his face, looking for the trick, the trap, the hidden agenda. But all she found was honesty. And something else. Something that looked almost like loneliness. If you are curious about our family, she said slowly, why not just ask? Why the job offer? Why the apartment? Why all of this? Because I have learned that people say what they think you want to hear. But how they live, what they do when they think no one is watching, that tells you who they really are. Shin moved closer, and Ada found herself unable to look away. I want to see who you really are, Miss Okonkwo. I have a feeling you are exactly what you appear to be. And if that is true, then you and your brother are the most valuable people I have met in a very long time. Ada should have said no. Should have taken Emeka and run as far from this dangerous man and his dangerous world as possible. But she could not protect Emeka alone. And something in her gut, some instinct she could not explain, told her that this man's interest in their family was genuine. Okay, she heard herself say, I will take the job. For Emeka's sake. But I want you to understand something, Mr. Shin. I am not intimidated by you. I am not impressed by your money. And if you ever do anything to hurt my brother, I will find a way to make you regret it. Shin Tae-hyun smiled. It was the first real smile she had seen from him, and it transformed his face completely. I believe you would, he said. And please call me Tae-hyun. The new apartment was beautiful. 3 bedrooms in a luxury building, with a doorman and security cameras, and neighbors who nodded politely instead of playing loud music at 3 in the morning. Emeka had his own room for the first time in his life. Space for his language books and his computer, and the chest that his grandmother had given him before she died. Ada had a bedroom with a window that overlooked the lake. She stood there for 20 minutes the first night, crying silently at the beauty of it, at the impossibility of it, at the fear that it would all disappear as quickly as it had come. She started working for Shin Holdings a week later. Translation services for international meetings, contract reviews for overseas acquisitions, high-level linguistic work that actually use her education, actually challenge her mind, actually pay enough that she could stop worrying about how to afford her mother's next treatment. And she saw him, Shin Tae-hyun, not every day, but regularly, in meetings where she translated, in corridors where their paths crossed, at company events where she hovered at the edges while he commanded every room he entered. She should not have noticed how he moved. Controlled, deliberate, graceful, like a predator who had learned to walk among prey without alarming them. She should not have noticed how his voice changed when he spoke to her versus when he spoke to his executives. Softer, more careful, like he was choosing words instead of giving commands. She should not have noticed how his eyes lingered on her face when he thought she was not looking, but she noticed, and she was terrified of what it meant. Are you feeling this? Because I am feeling this, and we are only getting started. I want to know what is going through your mind right now. Drop a comment and tell me, would you have trusted him? Would you have taken that job? Would you have walked into that world knowing everything that could go wrong? And while you are down there, make sure you hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because what happens next, I promise you, is going to shock you. 3 months into her employment, Volkov made his move. Ada was leaving the office late. The Chicago streets were empty and wet with recent rain, the streetlights reflecting off puddles like scattered stars. She was tired. Her feet hurt. And she was thinking about the meeting tomorrow, the translation she still needed to review, the 100 small tasks that never seemed to end. She did not notice the van until it was too late. It pulled up fast, tires screeching on wet pavement. 3 men emerged before she could react. One grabbed her arm. One covered her mouth. And the third pressed something cold and metallic against her spine. Shin's translator. One of them said it in Russian, and Ada understood just enough to feel her blood turn to ice. Volkov would want to talk to her. She was leverage, a way to get to Shin. She was going to die. Ada tried to scream, but the hand over her mouth pressed harder. She tried to struggle, but the grip on her arm was like iron. The metal against her spine pressed deeper, and she knew, with horrible certainty, that these men would not hesitate to use it. And then the world exploded into violence. Shin's security team materialized from shadows Ada had not known existed. They moved with a speed that did not seem human. One moment the street was empty. The next, there were gunshots, screams, the wet sounds of bodies hitting pavement. Someone shoved Ada to the ground. She covered her head, her heart hammering, her mind screaming that this could not be happening. This could not be real. And then it was over. The silence was almost worse than the violence. Ada lay on the wet pavement, her whole body shaking, unable to move. Then a voice cut through the ringing in her ears. A voice she knew. A voice that should not have been there. Ada! She looked up. Shin Tae-hyun was crouched in front of her, his face pale, his hands reaching for his shoulders with uncharacteristic desperation. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than her old apartment, and he was kneeling on wet concrete like it was nothing, like she was the only thing that mattered. Are you hurt? His voice cracked on the words. Did they hurt you? No. Her own voice was shaking. No, I am okay. I think. Thank God. And then, before either of them could think about it, he was holding her, his arms wrapped around her, pulling her against his chest, his face buried in her hair, his whole body shaken with a fear she had not known he was capable of feeling. I cannot, he whispered against her ear. I cannot lose anyone else. Not you. Please, not you. Ada did not know what he meant, did not know what anyone else referred to, but she found herself holding him back, her arms around his waist, her face against his chest, breathing in the smell of expensive cologne, and something underneath that was just him. They stayed there, in the middle of the street, surrounded by evidence of violence, holding each other like the world was ending. And Ada knew, with a certainty that terrified her, that something had just changed forever. They did not talk about what happened. Not that night, not the next day. Ada went back to work. Shin went back to running his empire. And both of them pretended that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Ada could not stop thinking about the way he had held her, the desperation in his voice, the way his whole body had trembled when he whispered those words against her ear. I cannot lose anyone else. Not you, anyone else. What did that mean? Who had he lost? She found out 2 weeks later. It was late, almost midnight, and Ada was still in the office reviewing contracts for a deal closing the next morning. She had expected to be alone, but when she walked past Shin's office on her way to the break room, she saw the light under his door. She should have kept walking. Should have got her coffee and gone back to her desk and minded her own business. Instead, she knocked. Come in. His voice sounded different, tired in a way she had never heard before. Ada pushed open the door and found him standing at the window, his back to her, a glass of something amber in his hand. I saw your light, she said. I wanted to make sure everything was okay. He did not turn around. Everything is fine. You are a terrible liar. That made him laugh. A short, surprised sound that did not have much humor in it. He turned to face her, and Ada saw something in his eyes that made her heart ache. Pain. Old pain. The kind that never fully heals. Today is my wedding anniversary, he said. Would have been 10 years. Ada's breath caught. She had not known he was married, had not known there was a wife somewhere waiting for him to come home. But then she saw his face, and she understood. She is gone, Ada said softly. Is she not? 3 years now. He took a long drink from his glass. Car accident. She was driving home from visiting her mother. Some drunk ran a red light, and that was it. Everything just ended. I am so sorry. Do you know what the worst part is? He set down the glass and ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. We were not in love. Not really. It was an arranged marriage. Our families decided we would be good together, and we were friends. We cared about each other. But I never loved her the way she deserved to be loved. That is not your fault. Is it not? He finally met her eyes, and Ada saw the guilt there, raw and bleeding. I married her because it was expected. I stayed with her because it was convenient. And now she is dead, and I cannot stop thinking about all the things I should have said. All the ways I should have loved her better. Ada moved closer, without thinking about it. You cannot blame yourself for things you did not feel. Can I not? He laughed again, bitter this time. I have spent my whole life doing what was expected, running businesses I did not choose, making alliances I did not want, being the person everyone needed me to be instead of the person I actually am. And where did it get me? A dead wife I never loved, an empire I do not care about, and a loneliness so deep I cannot see the bottom of it. The honesty of it took her breath away. This man, this powerful, dangerous, untouchable man, was standing in front of her with his soul cracked open. You are not alone, she said. Her voice came out softer than she intended. You have people who care about you. Do I? His eyes searched her face. Or do I have people who want things from me? Because in my experience, those are not the same thing. Emeka cares about you. He does not want anything except to see you safe. And Ada trailed off, suddenly aware of how close they were standing, how dark the office was, how alone they were. You what? Shin's voice was barely a whisper. I care about you too. The words came out before she could stop them. Not because of what you can give me, not because of this job or the apartment or any of it. I care about you because I see you, the real you, the one you hide from everyone else. The silence stretched between them. Ada could hear her own heartbeat, loud and fast. Then Shin said, that might be the most terrifying thing anyone has ever said to me. Why? Because if you see the real me, then you know how broken I am, and you are still standing here. Being broken does not make you unworthy of love. Ada reached out before she could think better of it, her hand touching his arm. It makes you human. Something shifted in his expression. The walls she had watched him build around himself started to crack. And for a long moment, they just stood there, connected by a touch and a truth neither of them had expected to share. I should go, Ada finally said. You need sleep, and I need to finish those contracts. She turned toward the door, her heart pounding. Ada! She stopped. Thank you. His voice was rough. For seeing me. For staying. She did not trust herself to speak. So she just nodded and walked out, her whole body trembling with the magnitude of what had just happened. After that night, Ada tried to pull back. She kept their interactions professional, avoided being alone with him, reminded herself over and over of all the reasons this was a terrible idea. He was her employer. He was dangerous. He lived in a world she did not understand and could never belong to. They came from different cultures, different backgrounds, different everything. And he was still mourning his wife, still carrying guilt he did not deserve, still broken in ways Ada was not sure anyone could fix. But the more she tried to stay away, the more she found herself drawn to him. It was the small things. The way he asked about her mother's health every time they talked. The way he remembered details she had mentioned weeks ago. The way he looked at her across crowded rooms like she was the only person who mattered. And it was the big things too. The foundation he was quietly building to support immigrant families. The way he treated his employees with respect instead of contempt. The changes he was making to his business. Slowly moving away from the shadows and towards something he could be proud of. He was not the man she had thought he was. He was not the cold, calculating crime lord the world saw. He was someone trying to be better. Someone fighting his own nature. Someone who wanted to deserve the second chance he had been given. Emeka saw it before she did. Just admit you are in love with him, her brother said one evening. They were having dinner in their new apartment. The city lights glittering outside the window. Everyone can see it except you. I am not in love with him. Ada stabbed at her food without looking up. You work late every night just to be near him. You light up when he walks into a room. And you have been wearing that perfume he complimented you on 3 weeks ago every single day since. Ada's face went hot. That is not. I do not. Emeka grinned. It is not that simple. Love is never simple. Ada, that does not mean it is wrong. He is my boss. So quit. He is dangerous. He is also the reason we are safe right now. The reason I am going to Colombia. The reason Mama's treatments are paid for. That is exactly the problem. Ada set down her fork. How do I know what I feel is real? How do I know I am not just grateful, or scared, or confused? Emeka reached across the table and took her hand. You know, because of the way you talk about him. Not about what he has done for us. About who he is. About his dreams and his fears and his guilt about his wife. You know things about him that have nothing to do with money or protection. Ada, he looked at her with a wisdom that sometimes still surprised her in her 17-year-old brother. You are in love with him. The question is what you're going to do about it. Ada did not have an answer, but 3 nights later, she got one. She was working late again. The office was empty, and when she looked up from her computer, Shin was standing in her doorway. You are still here, he said. So are you. I own the building. What is your excuse? Ada smiled despite herself. The Henderson contracts need to be finalized by morning. They can wait. No, they really cannot. Shin walked into her office and sat in the chair across from her desk. Then take a break. 10 minutes. Have coffee with me. It is almost midnight. Then have tea. There was something different about him tonight. A tension in his shoulders. A restlessness in his eyes. Ada had learned to read him over the past months. And right now, he looked like a man who had something to say but did not know how to say it. What is wrong? She asked. Nothing is wrong. You are an even worse liar now than you were 2 weeks ago. That pulled a real laugh from him. The sound made something warm unfurl in Ada's chest. I have been thinking, he said slowly, about that night in my office. About what you said. Tae-hyun, I should not have. You said you see me. The real me. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his eyes intent on her face. I have been trying to figure out what that means. Because no one sees me, Ada. No one has ever seen me. I have spent my entire life being what everyone else needed. And somewhere along the way, I forgot who I actually was. And now I am starting to remember. Because of you. He stood up and came around the desk. And suddenly he was right there. Close enough to touch. Close enough that Ada could smell his cologne and see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You make me want to be better. You make me want to build something I can be proud of. You make me want things I stopped letting myself want a long time ago. Ada's heart was racing. What things? This. He kissed her. It was not gentle. It was not careful. It was months of wanting and weeks of denying and years of loneliness all crashing together in a single moment. His hands cupped her face. Her fingers gripped his shirt. And everything else fell away until there was nothing but this. Nothing but him. Nothing but the feeling of finally, when they broke apart, both breathing hard. Shin rested his forehead against hers. Tell me I am not alone in this, he whispered. Tell me this is not just me. It is not just you. Ada's voice was shaking. I have been trying so hard not to feel this. Trying to be smart, to be careful, to protect myself. But I cannot fight it anymore. I do not want to fight it anymore. Then stop fighting. He pulled back just enough to look at her. Build this with me. Whatever it is, whatever it becomes. Let me love you the way I should have loved her. Let me do it right this time. Ada should have said no. Should have thought about the complications, the dangers, the 100 reasons this was a terrible idea. Instead, she said, okay. And for the first time and longer than she could remember, she let herself hope. But hope has enemies. And they were already gathering. Word spread through Shin, holdings like wildfire. The CEO was with the African translator, the immigrant woman with the dying mother and the genius brother, the one who had come from nothing and somehow captured the attention of one of the most powerful men in the city. The reactions ranged from surprise to disgust. Park Min-jun, Shin's cousin and the man who had always expected to inherit control of the family business, was the most vocal. This is an embarrassment, he said in a board meeting Ada was translating. A Korean man of his stature with an African woman? What will our partners think? What will the community say? The community will say nothing if they value their relationship with me. Shin's voice was ice. And anyone who has a problem with Ada has a problem with me. Is that understood? Min-jun's smile was thin and sharp. Of course, cousin. I meant no offense. But the whispers continued. Ada heard them everywhere. In the hallways, in the break room, at company events where people smiled her face and then turned away to mutter behind their hands. She is only after his money. An African woman raising a Korean heir? Imagine. This will destroy our business relationships. She is a liability, a distraction, a mistake. Ada tried to ignore it, tried to focus on her work, on Emeka, on the life she was building with Shin. But the cuts added up. Each whisper was a small wound. Each dismissive glance was a reminder that no matter what she did, no matter how hard she worked, some people would never see her as anything but an outsider. Korean business partners started pulling back. Deals that had been nearly finalized suddenly fell through. Investors withdrew support without explanation. It was systematic, brutal, designed to punish Shin for his choice. Ada watched it happen and felt guilt eat at her stomach. Maybe they are right, she said one night. They were in Shin's penthouse, the city glittering below them. Maybe I am destroying everything you have built. Shin turned to her, his expression fierce. You are building everything that matters. But the business can be rebuilt. You cannot be replaced. He took her hands. Ada, I spent 35 years doing what was expected of me, following rules I did not make, living a life I did not choose. And I was miserable since you came into my life. I have remembered what it feels like to want something for myself, to choose something because it makes me happy, not because it makes sense. This does not make sense. No, it does not. He smiled. That is how I know it is real. Now I need you to do something for me. I know you are deep in this story. I know you are feeling everything Ada and Shin are feeling. But I need you to engage. Type the word family in the comments if you believe love is worth fighting for. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their background does not determine their destiny. And make sure you have liked this video because the algorithm uses that to show this story to more people. We are almost at the end now. Everything they have been through leads to what happens next. And trust me, you are not ready. 1 year to the day after Emeka warned Shin about the plane, Ada found herself on a rooftop overlooking the Chicago skyline. Shin had been acting strange all day, distracted, nervous, checking his phone constantly, and then putting away without answering. What is going on with you? Ada asked as the elevator doors opened onto the rooftop. Then she saw it. The entire space had been transformed. Thousands of candles flickered in the evening breeze. Flowers were everywhere, roses and orchids and lilies in colors that reminded her of both Korea and Nigeria. A small table was set with champagne and chocolates. And in the center of it all stood Shin, wearing a look of vulnerability she had never seen from him. Tae-hyun, Ada whispered. What is this? He crossed the space between them and took her hands. His fingers were trembling. I practiced this speech 100 times, he said. I had it all planned out. Everything I wanted to say, perfectly structured, perfectly worded. And now that you are here, I cannot remember any of it. Ada laughed, tears already building in her eyes. Then just say what you feel. What I feel, he took a deep breath. What I feel is terrified, because I have never wanted anything as much as I want this, as much as I want you. He dropped to one knee, and Ada's heart stopped. Ada Okonkwo, he said, I am not going to promise you an easy life. My world is complicated. My past is heavy. My enemies are real, but I am going to promise you my whole heart, every piece of it, even the broken parts, especially the broken parts, because you are the one who made me believe they could heal. He pulled out a ring. Simple, elegant, a diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the candlelight like captured stars. This was my grandmother's, he said. She gave it to me before she died and told me to save it for someone who deserved it, someone who would make me a better man. She told me I would know when I found her. He looked up at Ada, his eyes shining. I know now. Ada could barely see through her tears. Tae-hyun, I will spend every day of the rest of my life becoming someone worthy of you. I will fight for you. I will protect you. I will love you until I have no breath left to give. He held up the ring. Will you marry me? Will you build this life with me? Will you let me love you the way you deserve to be loved? Ada did not hesitate. Yes. The ring slid onto her finger. Shin stood and pulled her into his arms, and they kissed under the Chicago sky, while the candles flickered and the city lights sparkled below them. For one perfect moment, everything was right. But Min-jun was not finished. The attacks escalated in the weeks after the engagement was announced. It was clear someone was coordinating them, feeding information to people who wanted to hurt Shin. First, Ada's car was tampered with. The brake lines were cut. Only Shin's paranoid insistence that all their vehicles be checked every morning saved her life. Then photos were leaked to tabloids. Private moments captured without their knowledge. Headlines designed to shame and humiliate. Crime boss's African mistress. Gold digger traps Korean billionaire. The immigrant who seduced her way to the top. The racism was explicit now, no longer hidden behind polite smiles and whispered comments. It was splashed across newspaper covers and gossip websites, ugly and unashamed. And then they went after Emeka. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. He was leaving his linguistics class at Columbia when 3 men approached him. They had the look of professionals. Hard eyes, controlled movements. The kind of men who were used to violence. But they had underestimated him. Shin had insisted on self-defense training for both Ada and Emeka from the moment they moved into secure building. 6 months of intensive martial arts. Hand-to-hand combat. How to escape holds. How to use an attacker's momentum against them. Emeka had been a reluctant student at first, but he had learned. When the first man grabbed his arm, Emeka twisted free and struck him in the throat. When the second man lunged, Emeka sidestepped and used his momentum to slam him into a wall. And when the third man pulled a knife, Emeka ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. Through campus, past startled students, straight to the security office where he called Shin's emergency line. Extraction team was there in 4 minutes. When Shin got the call, something in him changed. Ada had never seen him like this. Cold in a way that went beyond anger. Controlled in a way that promised violence. They touched my family, he said. His voice was flat. Dead. They touched what is mine. What are you going to do? What I should have done months ago. That night, Min-jun's faction was dismantled. Ada did not know the details. Did not want to know. But when she woke up the next morning, Shin was sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. It is done, he said. Min-jun is finished. His supporters have been dealt with. No one will threaten you or Emeka ever again. What happened to them? You do not want to know. She probably did not. But she sat beside him anyway and took his hand. I know you did this to protect us, she said, quietly. I did it because I love you. He looked at her, and there was something raw in his eyes. But I need you to understand what that means. I need you to understand who I am, the things I am capable of. If that changes how you feel. Ada squeezed his hand. I knew who you were when I fell in love with you. I did not expect you to become someone else. I am trying to be better, legitimizing the business, stepping away from the shadows, building something our children can be proud of. But that does not erase what I have done, what I am still capable of doing when someone threatens the people I love. Ada thought about the men who had tried to take her brother, the tabloids that had tried to destroy her reputation, the cousin who had spent months trying to tear apart everything she and Shin had built. Good, she said, because I do not want a saint. I want someone who will fight for me. Shin pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I will always fight for you, he whispered. Always. The wedding was held 6 months later, and it was unlike anything Chicago had ever seen. 2 cultures blending into one, Korean and Nigerian traditions woven together, so seamlessly that guests could not tell where one ended and the other began. Ada wore a dress that incorporated both the flowing elegance of a Korean hanbok and the rich patterns of Nigerian asaoke. Her mother, flown in from Lagos and healthier than she had been in years, thanks to Shin's doctors, placed the traditional coral beads around her daughter's neck, while tears streamed down her face. My daughter, she whispered in Igbo. My beautiful daughter. Your father would be so proud. Shin wore a traditional Korean hanbok in deep navy, accented with gold embroidery that echoed the patterns on Ada's dress. His mother, who had initially opposed the marriage, stood beside him with tears in her own eyes. It had taken months of conversation, of proving herself, but Ada had eventually won her over, not through money or status, but through love, through showing up, through being exactly who she was. The vows were exchanged in 3 languages, Korean, Igbo, English. Words of love and commitment that bridged every divide. I take you as my wife, Shin said, his voice strong and clear. Not because our families arranged it, not because it is expected, but because you are the home I did not know I was looking for. You are the peace I did not know I needed. You are everything. I take you as my husband, Ada responded, not because of what you can give me, not because of your power or your wealth, but because you see me, all of me, and you chose me anyway. That is all I ever wanted. Someone who would choose me. The reception was a celebration like nothing the guests had ever experienced. K-pop and Afrobeats playing back-to-back. Korean barbecue and Nigerian jollof rice served side by side. Elders from both cultures trading stories and laughter while children from both families played together, already becoming friends. But the moment that brought everyone to tears was Emeka's speech. He stood at the front of the room, the 17-year-old boy who had started everything, and he looked out at the crowd with a confidence that had only grown since that night at the airfield. A year ago, he began, I heard something I was not supposed to hear. A conversation through a ventilation grate. A plot to kill 14 innocent people. And I had a choice. Stay silent and stay safe. Or speak up and risk everything. He paused, letting the words land. My grandmother used to tell me something. She said the man who watches evil and does nothing becomes evil himself. But she also said something else. She said that courage creates ripples. That one act of bravery makes space for others to be brave too. He looked at Shin. That night, I was brave for maybe 10 minutes. And because of that, this man is alive. 14 people went home to their families. And my sister, he looked at Ada, and his voice cracked. My sister found the love she deserves. The room was completely silent. Tears were flowing everywhere. When I was a kid, Emeka continued, Ada was everything to me. Mother, father, protector, friend. She sacrificed so much to keep me safe, to give me opportunities, to make sure I had a future. And she did it all without ever asking for anything in return. He raised his glass. Today, I get to watch her receive something in return. A partner who sees her value. A family that will love her forever. A future that is worthy of everything she has given. He smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. To Ada and Taehyun, to courage, to ripples, and to the family we choose. The room erupted in cheers. Glasses clinked, and somewhere in the crowd, a grandmother's spirit smiled. 2 years after the wedding, Ada gave birth to twins. A boy and a girl, born 3 minutes apart, already holding hands when the doctors lifted them from her body. The boy was named Chukwemeka, after the uncle who had started everything. A name that meant God has done great things. Because he had. The girl was named Hannah. A Korean name meaning one or first. Because she was the first daughter of their new beginning. The first girl born into this blended family. The first of many beautiful things to come. When Shin held his children for the first time, the man who commanded rooms and destroyed enemies and never showed weakness wept like a child himself. I never thought I would have this, he whispered. Ada was exhausted and sore and happier than she had ever been. What did I do to deserve this? You chose love, she said, even when it was hard, even when everyone told you not to. You chose us. He kissed her forehead, then the foreheads of each of his children. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret that choice, he said. And he did. The children grew up speaking 3 languages. Igbo from their great-grandmother, who visited every year and spoiled them shamelessly. Korean from their grandmother, who had become one of Ada's greatest supporters. English from the world around them. They learned that family was not about blood or borders. It was about showing up. It was about choosing each other every day, even when it was difficult. It was about love that crossed every boundary and refused to be diminished. Emeka graduated from Columbia at the top of his class and went to work for the United Nations as a translator. His gift for languages that had once saved a plane full of strangers now built bridges between nations. He traveled the world, but he always came home, always gathered around the table with his sister and her husband and his niece and nephew, telling stories about the places he had been and the people he had met. And every time someone asked how he ended up at the UN, he told the same story. I heard Russian voices through a ventilation grate, and I decided to do something about it. Shin's business flourished. Fully legitimate now. Clean. Something his children could inherit with pride. The shadows were behind him. The future was bright. And Ada built her foundation. Schools in Nigeria. Shelters in Chicago. Programs that gave immigrant women the opportunities they deserved. She never forgot where she came from. Never forgot what it felt like to struggle. And she made sure that every person in her foundation helped knew the truth. You are not alone, she told them. I was you. I know how hard it is. But there's a way through. And we are here to help you find it. Late at night, when the children were asleep and the city was quiet, Ada and Shin would stand on their balcony and look out at the lake. Do you ever think about that night? Ada asked once. The night Emeka warned you? Every day, Shin said. I think about how close I came to dying. How one brave boy changed everything. How I almost missed all of this. He pulled her close. I think about how I spent 35 years living the wrong life. And then you walked in and showed me what the right one looked like. Ada turned in his arms, looking up at the face she loved more than anything. You were always worthy of the right life, she said. You just needed someone to remind you. They kissed under the stars and the city sparkled below them. And somewhere out there, ripples were still spreading, touching lives they would never know, changing futures they would never see. Because that is what courage does. It creates ripples. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button. It takes half a second, and it helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. Drop a comment telling me what moment hit you hardest. Was it the warning in the hangar? The confession in the office? The wedding speech? I want to hear from you. Share this video with someone who needs to believe that love can conquer anything. And if you're not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Join this family. Turn on notifications. Be here for the next story, because I promise you, they only get better from here. And before you go, let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, I pray for everyone watching this video right now. I pray that you give them the courage to speak up when silence would be easier. I pray that you bring them love that sees them completely and chooses them anyway. I pray that you help them build families, whether by blood or by choice, that will stand with them through every storm. And I pray that the ripples of their courage reach shores they will never see. Let their lives be testimonies. Let their struggles become stories that inspire others. And let them never forget that they are worthy of love, of hope, of a future filled with beautiful things. Amen. So, what did we learn from this story? We learned that courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in the presence of fear. Emeka was terrified in that corridor, but he acted anyway. He spoke up anyway. He chose to be brave for 10 minutes, and those 10 minutes changed everything. We learned that love does not always make sense. Ada and Shin came from different worlds, different cultures, different backgrounds. By every logical measure, they should not have worked. But love is not logical. It is transformational. It sees past the surface and finds a soul underneath. We learn that family is not about where you come from. It is about who you choose. Emeka chose to protect a stranger. Ada chose to trust a dangerous man. Shin chose to let down his walls and let love in. And because of those choices, a new family was born, one that spanned continents and cultures, and proved that we are always stronger together than apart. And we learned that ripples matter. Every act of courage, every moment of kindness, every choice to do right instead of wrong creates ripples that spread further than we can ever imagine. You never know who is watching. You never know who you might save. So here's my question for you. What is your moment of courage going to be? When will your chance come to speak up, to stand out, to do the right thing even when it is hard? I do not know when it will happen. I do not know what it will look like. But I know it will come. And when it does, I hope you will remember this story. I hope you will remember Emeka. And I hope you will be brave, because your story is still being written. Make it a good one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this family. And I will see you in the next story. Until then, remember, the man who watches evil and does nothing becomes evil himself. But the man who speaks up, who acts, who chooses courage over comfort, that man changes the world. Be that man. Be that woman. Be the one who makes the difference. And let the ripples spread.